you could pick up the phone. Somebody's on the phone.
Yes.
Phone wasn't exactly, well, first of all, the kids wouldn't ever get on the phone. At best, the kids would get on the phone and call the weather. At best.
Right.
Or the time.
And most didn't even know how to use it because they didn't give them permission to get on it to learn how to use it.
But so, like you said, the network of communication, that you know, that saying, if you will, that it take a village to raise a child, that was a fundamental mandate.
Yeah.
It existed.
Literally part of the infrastructure.
It did. Not only that, but I mean, if you did something you had no business doing around the corner, it wasn't unnormal for that parent to grab you and walk you
Yes.
to your house, knock on the door to talk to your parents.
That's right.
That was,
And they listened.
oh yeah, it wasn't no question about that. That was the way it was during the days. That just was the way it was. And where I grew up at was, it was a new subdivision from their perspective. So the block around the corner had just as many kids as the block that I grew up in. So when we grew up, it was just different. It was just different. I mean, you didn't have to go trick or treating too far to have a pillowcase full of candy for Halloween, because every house had kids and every house was giving something.
Sometimes we went back and got a new pillowcase.
Yeah,
Of course, we had to end up giving candy away anyway.
because it was too full. Well,
Yeah, it was.
I had candy for a year.
Yeah.
I ran out of candy roughly about the time it's time to go trick or treating.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, they let you keep it then.
Well, you know,
'Cause I had to
candy
use
don't
it
spoil.
that way.
See, candy don't spoil. So,
And then it was 7 of us. So.
you know, oh yeah, 7 makes a big difference
Yeah.
too. But candy don't spoil,
No.
and you didn't worry about, even though they said that, you know,
Yeah, what was the pins and the apples and the razor blades and the,
it really
and the
didn't
popcorn
exist.
balls and
It really didn't exist.
We
But your
didn't have
parents
those
always said, well, let's cut the fruit anyway to be on the safe side. But
Right.
you never had to worry about that. I mean, the candy, you could tell if it was open. So
right.
it just wasn't. It just was a different society. Everything was different then. It just was. You know, so from that perspective, like I said, listening to that, you know, it takes me back to where I think about that, where I thought about that, you know, immediately.
And that's what so it's supposed to do. Well, it's supposed to do quite a few things, which we don't really even have time to get into. But the 3 major things is that exactly what it did, which just brings back that whole feeling of nostalgia. But why is it? What happened? What was different? And then it can start flowing. You know, you start remembering things that wasn't even in this particular episode.
Mhm.
And when you was a Boy Scout and just all kinds of things.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing that has been good for me with Facebook, is that so many people now is so scattered everywhere. So, for example, the man, he lived in the next block. He was our Boy Scout troop leader.
Mm.
His daughter, youngest daughter, now is in. She's a school teacher in North Carolina, and so I managed, because of Facebook, to remain in touch with her. You
Right.
know, that's the one thing that's good about Facebook. You know, me going to high school, so many people that I knew in high school now, they're down in Atlanta. Most of them, half of them is in Atlanta now. And that's the good part about Facebook. But like you said, something like what you just talked about, it does have an interesting perspective of bringing back the memory of what used to be. Now the magic question, of course, is is there any way to bridge what used to be to inspire someone who didn't have that to then try to reach out and bridge that gap with a generation that don't know what
Kind
that
of
exists.
injected into them, so
Yeah.
to speak. That's part of the purpose of this.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's
I
the
want to
challenge.
see that if that's where you were going to go
That's-
with it.
that's the
so
challenge.
that's the second part of it.
Yeah,
that if that's the challenge to do that, because if you never introduce them to it, you know,
Yeah.
what are you going to say? You can't blame somebody for something you never exposed them to.
Yeah, that's one of the things that some of the guys that I grew up with, they're doing, like the community center, if you will, the Parks and Rec just made a commitment to refurbish that Park and Rec Center where we grew up at. We had our organized baseball, and they're trying to make that happen, or they're making it happen, if you will. And I never had the time to be able to do that because of all the other endeavors that I have.